Hugo Patt, the former Minister of Natural Resources, testified during today's Senate Special Select Committee's inquiry. Patt was the minister responsible for that ministry from 2018 up until the 2020 general election.
Whenever applications were submitted, the process was very straightforward. I mean, applications were received, and from there it made it through the process, eventually reaching to me. As long as the application was recommended and it had met all the requirements, then it was approved.
Thank you, sir. What would have been some of those requirements, sir?
I could not get into the details, but off my mind, I could tell you that as long as the person was a Belizean, that person could apply. And the other one, very important for the ministry, was that whenever a parcel of land was applied, the ministry had to ensure that the land was national land in order for it to be processed.
The committee, as it did with the former lands commissioner, continued to pose questions related to more than a dozen land transactions that were approved on November 4, 2020, days before the last general elections. Those lands located in the vicinity of the proposed site for the Port of Magical Belize were divided into 50-acre parcels, and many were sold for $5,000 each.
Would you recall whether or not Portico had applied for lands under its own name?
Madam Chair, certainly the general questions that the Senator has asked, I understand, and clearly my client does as well, the need for him to try to be helpful. But I must reiterate that once the questions become specific regarding Portico and any applications made in the name of Portico for lands, I think that's outside of the scope of the terms of reference.
The committee noted that it had documents from within the Ministry of Natural Resources showing that 450 acres of land within the area in question were approved for sale by the Ministry of Natural Resources to 7 separate companies on November 4, 2020. The same director was listed for all those companies, businessman Sanjay Huchandani.
While approving these lands, especially for companies, would it be a concern for you to have different companies applying at the same day and having the same directors? Would that be of concern to you?
Senator, whenever applications were accepted, it's because they had met the requirements. That's all I could tell you. Once those applications meet the necessary requirements, those were sent for processing.
Mr. Patt, would you recall a company Keystar Limited?
Senator, with much respect, I don't see the relevance of that question, neither to the motion nor to the terms of reference, and so I will exercise my right as a witness to decline to answer.
Would you recall a company Fire Sky Limited?
With much respect, Senator, I will exercise. I do not see the relevance of your question to the terms of reference or the motion, and so I will exercise my right not to decline to answer.
Same question, Vision Project Limited?
I will reserve my right as a witness to decline to answer.
Alkaline Limited?
I will reserve my right as a witness not to respond to that question.
Building Blocks Limited?
Same answer.
Kill Switch Limited?
Same answer, Senator.
Build Zone Limited?
Same answer, Senator.
The common director in all those companies is an individual, Sanjay Huchandani. Would you be familiar with him, sir?
I don't find that question relevant to the motion or to the terms of reference, and so I will exercise my right as a witness to decline to answer with much respect, Senator.
The committee further noted that 3 of those parcels were sold to Portico Enterprises. 2 that were bought for $5,000 from the government of Belize were sold off to Portico for $15,000 each. Interestingly, 1 parcel that Keystar Limited reportedly bought for $33,000 was also sold for $15,000.
For the Belizean people to know, we got a document from the Lands Department that was shared to you that you don't want to read, but I'll read it out for you.
Please advise your client.
Coastal land lots are usually sold or valued at $4,000 per acre. And all of these lands that were issued at east of Northern Lagoon were sold for $5,300. 50.1 acres of land on coastal lands is valued at $200,400. And all of these were only sold for $5,300. To me, that sounds like a lot of revenue lost by the government of Belize during your tenure.
While the question is relevant to the definitive agreement, I will have to state for the record that the social rates that the ministry applied then have been there for time immemorial. It is not something that I instituted. But I will tell you this, as a minister of land, as the former minister of natural resources, I cite as my duty to make sure that each and every Belizean gets a parcel of land at very affordable and social rates.
Reporting for News 5, I am Paul Lopez.